All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Good Old Hockey Podcast. This is episode number 22, trade deadline special. We had a crazy week, and I mean, Galli, last week I feel like I said that we had a pretty boring trade deadline this year compared to last year, but boy, that changed pretty quickly. I feel like that was one of the craziest trade deadlines, as in pretty recently, in terms of just names that got traded. Biggest for me as a Sharks fan, Hertl, which we'll get into later. But first off, Galli, how was the weekend? What'd you do? You bailed on us on Saturday. You were supposed to come out. What happened?
I got an explanation for that,
Okay.
and I'm pretty bummed I didn't make it out on Saturday. But yeah, man, the weekend was good. Just pretty much, what did I do Friday night? It's hard to even think what I did Friday night. I don't think I did too much on Friday night, in specific, but on Saturday, I am kind of like volunteering slash working for an indoor football team, indoor like arena football team
Yeah.
here in Nampa. They're called the Idaho Horsemen. So shout out Idaho Horsemen. I'm kind of
Yeah.
I'm helping them out a lot with their game presentation. I'm emceeing for them, selling some sponsorships for them. So to be fair, I did bail on Saturday, and I'm humiliated from it because I'm always usually coming out, and
Yeah.
to be fair, I was very very tired. I just worked basically 8-9 hours. Also didn't get paid to do it, but it's
Yeah.
whatever. It's a really good experience. But yeah, I am very apologetic that I bailed on you in GC, and pretty bummed. But GC's moving back soon, so we'll have some
Yeah.
more nights downtown in the
Oh, yeah.
future. But yeah, it would have been a good time. But Sunday was an interesting day. It was a crazy playoff game for my beer league team, the Hooligans.
Oh, yeah.
They're actually we ended up winning our semifinal, so we're now in the finals, which sucks. I'm probably gonna miss it because the game's at 3:45, and I get back at like 3:55 from Alberta, which is really shitty. I might make like 2 periods of the game. Fingers
Yeah.
crossed, hoping for that tailwind, and the game before goes to shootout. Really fucking hoping for that,
Yeah.
so I don't miss the chipper because I've been playing all since September for this.
Yeah.
So do not want to miss it. But yeah, during the game on Sunday, like a couple minutes left in the third, one of our players kind of slashed another player on the other team. That player lost his shit and basically tackled this guy into the boards and like held him down and was kind of punching him and was like, "Why would you do that?" All this stuff. They ended up tossing our player, so ejecting our player,
Yeah.
and he's suspended for the chipper. So he's gonna try to appeal it with the adult league commissioner. We'll see if that happens. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a pretty crazy end to the game. I also did have a nice little snipe, which is rare for me. So it was a good weekend. But I am very bummed that I missed out going downtown on Saturday. But
Yeah.
yeah, man, how was your weekend? How was Saturday too?
It was good. Friday, I didn't really do anything because I knew we were going to go out Saturday. So I was like, I'm just going to take a chill, easy night. So yeah, Friday, pretty much nothing. Saturday, helped my brother with this video project he's doing for school. He came into the studio and recorded some stuff. Shout out Brandon if you're listening. And then, yeah, Saturday we went to Sockeye, which is a brewery here. Have you been to the one in Garden City?
Yeah, it's fire. Like it's called like the Ale House or whatever with
Yeah.
the mini golf. Dude,
Yeah.
such a kick-ass place.
Food is amazing. They also have a full bar too, which is nice because I'm not the biggest beer lover in terms of like craft beer. I don't know. I'm not a big fan.
Same here. I love Coors Light, but
Yeah, I'm just not like big into IPAs or any of that BS. Like, just give me, some night. I had an old fashioned and I was loving it. And I was like, you know what? Not many breweries have this, so I was pretty pumped about that. I liked it a lot.
And mini golf,
and mini golf, $6
Yeah.
a person, 18 holes, mini golf, a lot of fun, great time. And then pre-gamed at our house, and then went out on Saturday night. And I mean, you didn't miss a whole lot. We had fun though, but it was a pretty draining night. I will say that it was just tiring.
Yeah.
It was just a
I
long
mean,
day. We played
going
pool.
to a brewery, then going to
Yeah,
pregame in downtown, man, at our age of
yeah.
23 and 24, it will get to you.
No, it will. It did. Sunday, I felt it a lot yesterday. Still kind of feeling it today. My head still hurts, but yeah. Other than that, I mean, just paying attention to all the trade deadline stuff. Funny story on Friday. I was watching, what was it, Game Notes, Chicklets, Army, and Merles, and I was watching it at work. There's people like sitting, getting ready to film a podcast, and they're sitting down in the lobby, and I am listening to the thing that's on the TV in the lobby, and I hear them come up on stage and they're like, "Breaking news: Tomas Hertl was just traded to the Vegas Golden Knights," and I let out one of the biggest screams of just like, "Oh my god!" Like in the middle, and they just like all looked at me, and I was like, "Sorry." I was like, "One of my favorite teams just traded our legacy player that's been there forever." Thought he would retire a Shark, but we will get into that. Trust me. But first up, glad we had a good weekend. And
Yeah, I just PSA to the world out there. Fuck daylight savings time, especially. I love the fallback. It's the best. You gain an hour,
yeah,
or lose an hour, whatever the fuck it is. But yeah, dude, spring forward, it's horrible. Like it is horrible. And then some asshole in my neighborhood decided to like chop up wood and like with a chainsaw at like 7 a.m. on Sunday morning. And it's like, it's like, are you fucking serious, dude? This is daylight savings. Everyone's tired as shit. Like,
yeah. Speaking of that, getting home, by the time we got home, it was 2 a.m. But that spring forward, I look at my phone, it's fucking 3 a.m. already. I'm like, God, we were supposed to have an early night. Like we'd left the bars at like 1, got pie hole, got home, and it's all of a sudden 3 a.m. But yeah, honestly, you just stay at this time because it gets dark. I mean, now it's just getting dark and it's 8 o'clock our time. So it is nice.
Arizona and Hawaii are lucky they don't have daylight savings time, and the rest of the world.
That switch is just fucked. But anyways, coast to coast, we're gonna get into it. Some of the news around the league before we get into the trade deadline stuff. We will touch on that. Trust me. First thing up, Torts, Flyers coach, the other night. I want to say it was last night on Sunday. Pretty much got into a screaming match with the refs. The refs tossed him, and he did not back down. He was like, "I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere." And I don't know. I thought it's funny. It's just who he is. He's this electric coach, old school, crazy guy. What do you think?
I don't think he should have got ejected. I think a penalty is good enough. I mean, I think Wes McCauley kind of had a big ego when he threw him out. To be fair, I think Torts is probably one of the most vocal coaches in the whole league.
Yeah.
So they were probably like, "We're sick of this shit. Get the fuck out of here."
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like if it was some other coaches, probably wouldn't have happened. But just his track record, I feel like, they're probably gonna start tossing him if he starts doing that stuff from now on. But I mean, hockey coaches and NHL coaches, that wasn't the worst meltdown I've seen. So no. I mean, compared to other meltdowns, I don't think it really warrants an ejection and a 2-game suspension. I mean, and people, and a $50,000 fine. I mean, that's tough. That's a lot of things, and I mean, not only that. I mean, I feel like that stuff it's publicity for the game, and I don't know. He must have said some pretty nasty shit because. It takes a lot for him to get ejected. So I don't know. What's your take on that, though?
I mean, like you said, I think it was an ego thing. I think a lot of these refs this year we've seen kind of get a little crazy with that, where it's like, dude, the coaches are going to get emotional and crazy. Like, yeah, you can't go overboard. You're going to get in trouble for it. And I think Torts maybe was a little bit out of line, just not saying he was going to leave the bench. But that's just who he is. Like, he's like that. He's that crazy. So I don't really agree with the whole suspension stuff. I think the biggest thing is that it's to make an example out of him. So
yeah,
I get that.
Down 4-0 too in the game. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's like, dude, he's already losing. Like, just move on. But Islanders, they are on right now 6-game win streak. But in the history of our podcast, we don't have the best of luck for people when we shout them out. Like the Oilers talked about their 15. We didn't talk about their win streak at all. And then all of a sudden we're like, yeah, they're on a 15-game win streak, lost the next game. So we'll see if this jinx holds up. If the Islanders, when do they play next?
I'm not totally sure. I don't follow the Islanders too closely,
Yeah.
but
Do
I don't think they play tonight. I think they play. Oh, they play tonight against the Kings. So we'll see if that holds up.
Yeah. By the time we're done, we'll see.
Yeah, smash the Kings, everyone.
Yeah. That's funny. But yeah, Islanders. I mean, I don't know. They've kind of had a weird season. They're on the bubble right now in terms of actually making the playoffs. I don't know exactly where they sit, but
yeah, right now they're tied for the second wild card spot with Detroit.
Okay.
I mean, holy shit! I feel like we talked about them a week or two ago, and Patrick Waugh, especially getting that higher.
Yeah.
I think we both said they're going to miss the playoffs still, but it's more of a long-term move. But shit, I mean, if they make the playoffs, we know how the Islanders do in the playoffs. They're kind of a dark horse. Like every year they get into the playoffs. Frankie from Barstool is going to be going crazy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't see them making it too far this year, but who knows? And they got a good coach behind them. But will they make the playoffs? It's kind of a toss-up still for me. But they are playing really good hockey. They're probably playing the best hockey they played all year. So
yeah, it's definitely the best time to get hot like this. It's when you need to be. We saw that with Florida last year. They kind of struggled and then turned it on, made the playoffs, and they went all the way to the final. But I don't think they're the same team as the Panthers were last year. So I don't know. There's nothing that really sticks out to me besides their great goaltender, but nothing else really sticks out for me for the Islanders. But yeah, do you think so? Final decision. Let's make a yes or no. Are they making the playoffs?
I'm gonna stick with no.
Me too.
I just think, I mean, shit, Detroit's fallen so much. They're on a 5-game lose streak. I mean, talking about streaks. So I just feel like Detroit has a little bit better of a team, but it might come down to goaltending, to be honest. So
yeah.
And I think the Islanders have that. I mean, I'm gonna say no though. I think Detroit's gonna figure their shit out and really push for the playoffs.
I'd like them to get that seed too.
Yeah, who do you think that they're going to make the playoffs? You're going to stick with no?
No, I'm sticking with no. I don't trust them.
Definitely. Yeah, I guess some more news next on our list. We got Evgeny Kuznetsov. He's had a crazy past week. 2 weeks maybe. Yeah. First getting into the player assistance program. And speculation behind that, if Washington was just trying to terminate his contract, because they sent him down to the AHL once he cleared the program, which is one of many players that have gone into that this year. But yeah, he got sent down to Hershey, the AHL team of the Capitals, and he was traded, I think, on Friday to Carolina. And I think that's kind of a shocker because I believe they're in the same division, the Caps and the Canes. Yeah, so they're in the same division. I mean, trading within division, but they also retained 50% of the salary, which, to be fair, it's only for the next year. But also got a 3rd round pick, which isn't much for a player of his caliber. So that could be a really big addition for the Canes. Especially if he fits in there. I think they're going to be able to sign him for a lot less than $7.8 million a year. I mean, I think his next contract probably be around $3-4 million a year. But yeah, man, I think he's going to be a good fit for the Canes. He's got playoff experience. He's a good guy to have on your team. I mean, obviously he's got the offense issues, but hopefully he's kind of over that, and hopefully this is a wake up call for him.
Yeah, I mean, the Hurricanes, they're making a push. I mean, they've got, we'll get into it again later, but they made some good moves at the deadline. So we'll see. Hopefully you can get some help off the ice, get all that stuff figured out. We've only got a month till playoffs pretty much. So he's got to figure it out quick. But I think it was a good move on Washington's part just to kind of, start that rebuilding process, sadly, because they don't have much in them anymore, I don't think. which is sad to see for Ovi especially. But I mean, yeah, good on them. I think both parties had a good move there. But
Yeah, I think
right.
Carolina's gonna. I mean, I know we're gonna get into trades later. We don't
Yeah.
have this one we're gonna discuss, but I think
Yeah.
Carolina did win that trade.
Yeah.
But one last question. I mean, do you think is this going to be the return of Evgeny Kuznetsov?
I don't know. Unless he can figure out his off ice stuff, because that really, I think, affects people more than people realize, or at least in the past, especially. I feel like now it's a little bit more, talked about in terms of like players' mental health and stuff like that, and making sure that they're solid off the ice, because if they're not going to be good on the ice. So I honestly couldn't tell you that, to be completely honest. I don't know that this is his big return. I mean, how old is he? He's probably what, 30?
I think he's 30, 31.
Okay.
So,
Well, he's not totally, it's not like his very end of his career. I could see next year him having a better season than he did this year, but I think for this playoffs, I don't know that he's going to be up to that standard.
this is a bold take, but I think this is the return of Evgeny Kuznetsov.
Really?
I think he's going to have a great end of the rest of his year. But not only that, I think he's going to really do some good work for the Hurricanes in the playoffs. And who knows? I mean, I totally think he's going to have a better year next year. But I think this is just a huge wake up call to him. I think he was the highest paid player ever to play or to ever be on an AHL roster. I don't think he played a game, but that's kind of a cool statistic. But yeah, I think he's going to return. I think this is just such a big wake up call for a decent player. That he's going to be able to slot in for the Canes. I think Brindamore is a great coach over there. He's going to be able to get him in shape. I mean, he's got other Russians on that team like Svechnikov. So I think I think it's the return to Kuznetsov. So right. That's a bold call though.
Yeah.
So
no, it's one that'll pay off though if you call it. So yeah, we'll see how he does. Hopefully he gets the help he needs in the next month or two. But all right, the hot topic, LTIR. For those of you that don't know what it is, it stands for long-term injured reserve. So teams can place these players basically saying they're out for the season. So it frees up cap space for them to continue their season, because it's obviously they've lost that player. Who's the other? So the Knights are a big team as of recently in the last couple of years that have used this to their advantage. I know Logan Thompson, their goalie, is on it right now.
I think the Rangers did last year a little bit, but I know I feel like this all really started when Tampa Bay did it back in like 2019, 2018. Yeah. People were throwing a fit just like, back then as they are now. I think Vegas kind of abused it a little bit more than Tampa. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting it's going to be interesting to see how Vegas handles this, because how soon these players on the injured reserve are going to come back in the playoffs. I think that's going to really upset some people, but I don't know. What's your take on this? I know you're pretty heated about it.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many levels to this, because I feel like, yes, it's wrong, but it is allowed. So I heard this morning on Daily Face-Off. Colby Cohen said this, who's an old ex-NHL player, I think. Ex-professional. But I didn't know this. I don't know if you knew this, but players don't actually get paid in the playoffs for their games. They get paid for the regular season. So they don't make any money really in the playoffs, which, I mean, it's the playoffs. So if those guys are playing for money, like, they've got other issues, like you're playing for the freaking Stanley Cup, right? But they do get bonuses if they, keep going on the rounds. If you win one round, I want to say it's correct, like $200 or around that area. Stanley Cup, even it's not nothing close to what their salary is, but they still do get paid a bit. So that's why with the LTIR, if these players come back in playoff time, then it doesn't really count towards the salary cap, because they're not actually paying them. But first off, I don't blame the Knights for doing it. I don't like it because it's the Knights. and they not get away with everything, but I'm a Sharks fan, so I just naturally hate the Knights. But I'm also jealous in a sense too because of how smart their front office is.
Yeah.
But the one thing that is a little, I don't know, weird for me is how often Mark Stone in the last 3 years has gotten hurt around February. Now, yes, he has a ruptured spleen or lacerated spleen, which, I mean, yeah, you don't want him coming back from. He's got to nurse that injury. But I swear to God, if he comes back April 19th for the first playoff game, it should raise some eyebrows. I'm sorry, but like LTIR is meant for people that, are out even for the first half of the season, say like they start off hurt. I mean, they put Jack Eichel on there for a bit, I think, and I was like,
Yeah, Shea Theodore, Pietrangelo.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done it a bunch in the past, and
yeah,
I think it's going to get really fishy if they do. I mean, like I said, I think it's a little bit unfair if they do use it to their advantage in the playoffs. Like it's totally warranted, it's fair, and it's in the rules. But I do think it's unfair if they are lying about injuries. But I think this is something that's definitely going to be addressed in the next collective bargaining agreement, which is in 2 years. So we have another 2 years of this before anyone says anything.
Yeah. Well, hopefully people just, start maybe utilizing it more so that it actually gets brought up instead of just one team doing it. And it's like, well, you guys aren't utilizing it. So if more teams utilize that, that's the thing. It's like, it's hard to utilize if your players aren't hurt, but it's just really, really fishy that, and maybe it's not this year that Mark Stone, like maybe he's actually injured this year, but the past 2 years, maybe he was lying. Maybe he wasn't.
Yeah.
But just the fact, I mean, you can look, it shows the last 3 years, he's gone on LTIR right before the playoffs. Obviously last year they won the cup. Tampa Bay did this. They won the cup again. Do you think that means the Knights are slated for a cup this year?
Right now they're the favorite. I mean, they have such a star-studded roster. I mean, they have by far the best defense. I think, their forwards are really good too. I mean, they have one of the best forwards group too, and experience in the playoffs, everything. I mean, their 5 skaters on the ice are what's going to separate them from other teams. I think it's going to kind of come down to the goaltending, though. If they don't figure out that goaltending, I mean, Adin Hill, is he going to repeat what he did last year? I mean, is Adin Hill a Vasilevsky? Because Tampa Bay got really blessed to have Vasilevsky. So, I mean, I don't think that they're going to repeat. I could honestly see them getting out in the first round. I think this happens a lot with teams that are overhyped. I mean, last year, the Bruins, people were like, oh, they're a slot in for the conference finals. I know Tampa Bay, when they had their record-breaking season, like back in 2017-18, they got knocked out first round. Calgary, when they had their record-breaking year, knocked out first round. So I don't think I can see them making it past the second round just because there's so much hype around them. It's hard, I feel like, to slot in players to an NHL roster and for them to really make a true difference. But not only that, I mean, if these injuries aren't fake, I mean, coming back from a lacerated spleen that's a hard injury to come back from. So, I think if Mark Stone comes back and he's like 100%, it's like, that's definitely some eyebrows raised. But, I mean, just to touch on your point earlier too, I mean, I think it's in the rule books, but it really comes down to your front office. If your front office is good, they know how to play these chips. I mean, of course, no pun intended with Vegas, play these chips. But but I mean, with Vegas, I mean, they have such a good front office. Tampa, such a good front office too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think other teams will start looking into this a little bit more depending on how this playoffs goes. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, I don't think they're going to repeat. I mean, what do you think, though?
I think, like you said, it's tough to just plug and play these players. Like, yeah, on paper, they have a really great team. But we've seen it in the past where it doesn't necessarily transition to anything. I mean, last year, the freaking Rangers should have had the cup because of who they had on their team. And they had Tarasenko, Patrick Kane, like they, on top of the stars they already have, like Panarin, Kreider, Zibanejad, like all their players, they have a great team. But some reason, and the best goaltender, Shesterkin, one of the best. I'll give him the best. But we saw them get knocked in the first round to the Devils. And I mean, that's different.
I feel like the Rangers are so similar to Knights this year too, just with all these trade acquisitions and whatnot.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think also with the Rangers, I mean, it's the playoffs are just a different animal. And last year with Adin Hill just kind of blossoming into this great goaltender, I don't know how he's really doing this year in terms of stats and everything, but he's
okay. I mean, I mean, that they don't have the strongest of goaltending, but things could turn around in the playoffs. I think he's sitting at like a 918 save percentage right now, but yeah, it's going to be interesting, especially with their goaltending and on paper they have such a good team, but this might really bite them in the ass 3 years down the road. Getting these first round picks for the Knights, these teams are kind of relying on Vegas to have a downfall, which could completely be in the cards. So I'm very intrigued to see how this plays out, say 2-3 years later. But shit, I mean, it's worth it if they're going to win 2-3 cups from it. So, I mean, I just want to say at the end of this, props to the Vegas Golden Knights front staff. But oh my goodness, if these injuries are not real, I'm going to be pissed, man.
Dude, if there's a Netflix documentary about this in 5 years, I'm going to be screaming at the top of the mountain, be like, I fucking called it. But same there. Props to them. They just need to figure it out at the CBA. Even if it's just, when they go in LTIR, they're done. They can't play in the playoffs. I know they don't get paid in there, but it's still, it's still not enough to be like, oh, well, they don't get paid in the playoffs, so it doesn't really matter about the salary cap. It's just not how that should work. And if he's thinking it,
I'd
be pissed.
I think that at least is just a sour taste in everyone's mouth, like in the whole league. It's just like, oh, well, why didn't my team do this? Like they're in a playoff spot right now, or like even from someone like a Sharks or a Flames fan. I mean, it's tough too, because it's like I think back to a couple years back. It's like, why didn't the Flames do this? They could have gotten Eichel. They could have got so many people at these trade deadlines, but I don't know. I think it's going to kind of come down to how well Mark Stone plays in the playoffs and how soon he comes back. I mean, if he's a conference final comeback, I mean, I think that's a little bit more understandable. But if he's first round, like first game, oh my gosh.
Then it's like, all right, dude. Like, we know what you were doing. But like with last thing I'll say, I mean, I think Stone was a huge part. And a lot of the players were, but I think Stone was one of the biggest factors on why Vegas won last year. He's a great leader for them, as much as I don't like him just as a rival, and I just don't like the Knights. But he's a great player. He's a great leader. He's a good defensive center. He's a great leader. Obviously, Jonathan Marchessault for them also was a big factor. Obviously, the Conn Smythe winner and Jack Eichel too. But without your captain, if he actually is hurt, and the recovery time is 3 to 6 months, so I'm wishing Mark Stone a very slow and, just a good approach to that injury recovery, I would say.
Dude, the Knights are like second wild card right now too. Technically, there's some teams that could pull ahead of him. If the Knights don't make the playoffs, oh my gosh. If the Flames move the Knights out just somehow, my favorite thing would be if it came down to the Knights and Flames tied with points in the standings and some stupid tiebreaker, like just go straight to the rule book, like, sorry, it's the rule book. I mean, same thing with the cap, that would be ideal. But it's gonna be interesting to see if they even make the playoffs, because they're not doing too hot at all. They're 3-6-1 in their past 10 games, so it's gonna be interesting to see. And if they don't make the playoffs, they just gave away so much assets for basically nothing. So
Yeah. That's the name of their game I've noticed with the Knights. I know we keep rambling about them, but I keep thinking of things to say. The Knights, they have always just had this mindset to shoot for the cup, which is smart. But I'm really curious 10 years down the line. I know we've said maybe they just won't go through a rebuilding phase because they're always just going to be stacked, but you can't get so like you just can't get too much out of a first round pick, and especially if they're that good and they're the freaking Knights. And
yeah,
you know, it's most likely conditional, that first round pick, if it's like top 10 protected, probably. So I don't know. It's not like it's a super big return out of that first round pick, but they've only got one first round pick for the next, I think, 3 years. They traded away the 2025 one and the 2026 one, but they do have their 2024 one. So we'll see who that player is and when they get rid of him, because I know for a fact they're not going to keep him around. So
it's a big gamble that Vegas takes a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, so. It's in their name. They're from Vegas, so they love to gamble. But we're gonna move on to some trade grading. We will bring up the Knights again, I guarantee it. But one of the first honorable mentions, pretty sad about this one. Phil Kessel did not get signed. There was some, little cock teasing that he was going to get signed by the Canucks, but ultimately it didn't happen. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sad about it. The Canucks are good. He could have had possibly another chance at another cup, sitting on the bench maybe, but still, I don't know. What
Dude,
do you think?
the fucking Knights should have just brought him back. Like, fuck it, just bring him back, or the Canucks. I mean, anyone. I mean, Phil the Thrill, man. It sucks that he's not in the league this whole year, and especially for the rest of the year. So I'm really bummed about it. NHL is definitely not a better place without him. So
we need him back.
Yeah, I mean, he's an NHL legend. I mean, it's crazy to think he had the Iron Man streak last year.
Yeah.
And he got a fucking healthy scratch
for the playoffs.
So that's fucked. I mean, if you're in an Iron Man streak and then next thing you know, people are like, oh, he's not conditioned enough. I think just having that streak alone says that. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I know his diet's not the best. He's not the best in shape looking. But
he's stuck in this like 2010s hockey. It's not the 20s like it is, which is weird to say that we're like in the 20s, but like the 2010s was very, cheeseburger diet, all that stuff. Now it's like freaking chicken and rice. And I mean, that's always been a staple, but it's very like, diet, exercise oriented. Whereas before, when he was playing around, like those fuckers were doing and eating whatever. But
yeah, I mean, to be fair, he's 36 years old, so it's like whatever. But I just feel like teams aren't taking that big of a risk to have him on, and he's a 30 to 40 point game, point scorer the past few seasons. So I just feel like the Canucks should have signed him. I think a lot of teams thought the Canucks were going to sign him, so they didn't even try, and then they just didn't. And it's like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah, Phil the Thrill. Yeah, but
pour one out to Phil the Thrill.
Yeah, pour one out for him. But we are going to grade 5 trades from the trade deadline on each team. First one up, Vladimir Tarasenko got traded to Florida, which is crazy. Florida's already a really good team. They were already one of the favorites before the Knights fucking stacked up their roster. But Panthers adding Tarasenko, great ad. They have pretty solid defense, I feel like. Probably could use some bolstering, but then they've got Bobrovsky in net. We'll see again if he can keep it up.
Yeah, he had two goals in his first game too, Tarasenko. So I think this is a very solid pickup for Florida at very little cost too.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the Sens kind of had their hands tied, and they had to move him, or they were just going to let him walk in the offseason. So I mean, props to the Senators, kind of just biting the bullet and taking the best thing they got. Who knows if that was the best offer they got, but I mean, for this year, Tarasenko wasn't anything too special, but I feel like, he slotted in the right roster, right line mates. I mean, you can get back to that
Yeah.
Vladimir Tarasenko that was on the cover of NHL 17 or whatever.
Yeah. 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 I think it's tough for him, especially playing out in Ottawa, being, I mean, dead last in the Atlantic. Like, I mean, it's tough to say that, you know, he had a bad season. He was playing for a bad team, and maybe he should have shined a little bit brighter. But I think with Florida, clearly he's had a good first game, so I think it'll keep going. But the Ottawa Senators in return got a 2024 fourth round and a 2025 third round pick. Both are conditional. Don't know what the fuck the conditions are because they're always some weird ass shit where it's like if we spend $25 at dinner, then it turns into a fifth round pick. And then if you guys spend $15 at McDonald's, then it turns into that. So I don't know what these conditions. I don't want to get into it. But what is your grade for the Ottawa Senators first for this trade?
For the Sens, I want to just give them a solid B minus, and then for the Panthers, I'm going to give them a solid A plus. I mean, I think this is a low cost upgrade. I mean, rental if anything, and I think he's already made a difference for the Panthers, and he showed that he's still an elite player in the league, and he's able to score goals like he used to. I feel like it was really tough for Tarasenko to be kind of like the old guy in Ottawa. I mean, it's a pretty young team, but to kind of have that pressure where he didn't really have that his whole career, I feel like that kind of affected his gameplay up in Ottawa. But yeah, I think this is such a solid pickup for the Panthers. What would you grade this one?
I'd say for the Senators, I mean, just with everything he got them to sign there, or they got him to sign there, and then kind of just having the shitty season that they had, I'm going to give the Senators in this trade a C, just a flat C. They got some picks in return. For Florida, I'm going to give them an A plus too because I feel like this is a low risk, high reward type trade. You're getting rid of a third round and a fourth round the year after, but it's not like you're giving up a whole lot, but what you're getting in return just outweighs it completely. So we'll see if it turns into a rental. So be it. Like I said, low risk, high reward. But all right, Hannafin. The Hannafin trade to the Vegas Golden Knights for, in return, a 2026 first round pick, 2025 third round pick, and Daniil Miramov. Miramov? Is that how you say it?
Correct. Which he was a second round pick, I believe, for the Knights. But just starting off, I think Hannafin and his agent.
Get your rant out. I'm gonna get my rant out on Hertl. I won't say anything. I'll give my grade, but you give your rant because I'm gonna rant the fuck out of Hertl. So
yeah, man. I mean, Noah Hannafin, a great player for the Flames. He really was one of their best defensemen for many years. But I do truly, I don't know if it was him. I don't think it was him, but I do think his agent definitely had some play into this whole trade process. And the whole league knew that Hannafin wasn't going to re-sign there.
Yeah.
I think if those details were kind of maybe kept private, the Flames could have got a way better return for him because Noah Hannafin's easily a top forward defenseman, possibly even top pairing defenseman at a lot of places. So I truly think that Hannafin's agent kind of hijacked this process, and the Flames did not get as much back in return as they would have liked. I mean, a 2026 first, 2025 third, and then basically a second round draft pick from a couple years ago who's 26 years old. I will say, like, I mean, he's a little bit older on the age, but I do think he still has some potential. He's an offensive defenseman. I just feel like Vegas never really gave him a chance, but he's always been good for Henderson, their AHL team. But I knew this was coming for the Flames, and it was kind of tough. It was a tough pill to swallow with Hannafin, tough pill to swallow with Tanev, and it's going to be tough once they trade Markstrom this offseason, which I believe is going to happen. But just going off of grades, we'll keep this moving. Calgary, I think I'm going to give this trade a C. And then Vegas, they haven't re-signed him. So I'm going to give Vegas a B. just because they did give away a first round. I mean, I think the
Yeah.
defenseman's not the biggest loss for them. But, if they don't re-sign Hannafin or say they miss the playoffs, I mean, that's going to be
Yeah.
tough to give away that first. And they don't have too many firsts in the next 3 years. So,
Yeah. Really don't. Yeah. I would give Vegas, I'd give them a B plus just because I know that they're pushing for the playoffs, expecting to make it. And like you said, yeah, they have not signed him yet. And to give away a first round pick like that, there's no way I'm giving them an A. But I mean, Noah Hannafin's a good ad. So yeah, I'm going to give them a B plus. All right. Tomas Hertl to the Vegas Knights. First off, respect to Hertl. I know he, as a Sharks fan, and you got to give your player some flowers and wish the best for him. I have no hard feelings for Hertl. I think he would have loved to stay with the Sharks, but where we're at, he deserves some success. He got some good success in the beginning of his career with us. Got a lot of rides and experience in the playoffs with, like Joe Thornton, Pavelski, Marlowe, all those guys. But basically, happy for him. Just sucks that he's going to be wearing gold. It's literally disgusting to me that he's going to be wearing a Knights jersey. Anyone else, anywhere else, I mean, I think I'd be more happier for him, but I am still happy for him. But
yeah, in division rival too. Like,
yeah,
come on.
Yeah. It's like, it's one thing if we were to trade to Vancouver or Calgary. Like, yeah, there's some bad blood there just in terms of division. But the Knights, like, it's either the Knights or the Kings that are our biggest rivals. I'd say as of recently, it's the Knights just with the playoff history recently. But shit, like, I just don't know how that happens. Like, truly, I don't know how many trades like that happen, but the details are the Sharks traded Tomas Hertl and 2 third-round picks in the future. So we gave up picks, giving them to Hertl, also retained 14% of his salary, which is, I think, $2 million. In return, we got 2025 first-round pick. Nope, not next year, the year after. David Edstrom, which was the Golden Knights' first-round pick last year, who got picked 32nd. Looking at his stats, he didn't, he's not doing anything crazy. I think he's playing in the SHL, if I'm correct. Somewhere out in Europe he's playing, and he's kind of just a young kid out there, so he's not really getting a whole lot of playing time. But man, Mike Greer, GM of the Sharks, I was hopeful for him just because it's new blood, new GM, give him a chance. With the Carlson trade, we really did not get much in return. Again, had to retain salary. Now this Hertl trade, I mean, yeah, we got a first-round pick in 2 years, but we have to retain salary again. And Hertl, who we're paying for 6 fucking years, we're going to be paying $2 million. You get three slots to retain salary, and we used up one of them. Now, the Sharks do have a lot of salary cap issues in terms of their players. The ones I can think of that are left are Couture and Vlasic. Vlasic gets paid like $6 million a year, by the way, and he's like third defenseman. Couture, I want to say, is around 7 or 8. So it does kind of help with our salary cap issue, but to retain salary on that, and literally I think what bugs me the most is that salary retention is purely based on the fact that Vegas could only afford $6 million more because of their freaking LTIR shit. That's why we retained it. And it makes me upset. But if you had to grade the Knights, I'll do it first. If I had to give the Knights a grade on this trade, I'd give them, sadly, an A minus. They did give up some prospects and future prospects, but what they got in return, a great center with, he's got some playoff experience. He's been deep.
Excellent center
recently, but yeah, he's a great center. And, what they gave up isn't crazy. They got some salary retained by us for 6 years that we're trapped into. So I would give the Sharks probably a D plus on this. The return isn't horrible. I'm not going to give it an F.
Yeah.
What's your grade?
I'm gonna say for the Knights to A. Pretty similar to yours. I'd say it's probably a D, maybe C minus if that first rounder turns into something.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Yeah.
shit, I don't. I mean, who knows? Maybe next year for the Knights, it's going to be a tank of a year, and
Could
that
be.
could really turn out for them. But
Yeah.
I think it's just a little bit tough for them to get that 2025. I think I would have probably graded it a C or maybe even a B minus if they got like a 2027 or 2028 first rounder.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, kind of underwhelming for the Sharks, and yeah, man, it's tough. I am interested to see what the hell they're gonna do with all these
I'm too.
picks and
Yeah.
all these prospects coming in. But yeah, I'd say a D for the Sharks and an A for the Knights, because I mean that is an excellent upgrade for them going into the playoffs, and good for Hertl.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that he's going to be a good fit with the Knights, and yeah, I know it's tough for a lot of Sharks fans out there though right now.
Yeah. No, it is, dude. We've got 2 players left, or at least I do, from my childhood. Like before 2000, like 2010 time. We've got 2010, 12, I guess. Couture and Vlasic are the only 2 left that I remember as a kid. Everyone else is gone. So it's sad times. When those guys leave, it's going to be weird to look at that locker room. But moving on, sadly, from the Knights, Jake Gensel, who I thought Knights were going to get.
Yeah,
And
same here.
I was kind of pissed when I heard Hertl was gone because I was like, and they're adding, or I think Gensel was before. I don't know. But Gensel got traded to Carolina for Ty Smith, Michael Bunting, and 3 prospects, a conditional first, and a 5th in 2025. So the Penguins obviously they're starting the rebuilding process. Again, sad for Sid. I don't think he's going to touch the playoffs anytime soon unless he gets traded, which would be crazy if Sid is not a Penguin when he retires. Like, I don't know what to do. It'll just be weird.
Yeah. I mean, he did
But
open up. I know he was very upset about this trade with Gensel, because
I
him and
saw that.
Gensel were buddies.
Yep.
And especially in the past couple in, and I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see if Crosby gets traded. I feel like it might take a lot for him not to be traded, because I heard he was not upset, according to a lot of news that came out. But holy shit, what a fucking return for the Pens. I think they got a lot out of this.
Mm-hmm.
It probably was their best offer. But yeah, still a tough blow. I think they could have kept Gensel. I think they could have moved some other players around. But yeah, man. I mean, I know Gensel's been having a decent year, 52 points.
Yeah.
Bunting's 36 points. He's younger too, so maybe that's what the Penguins need. He brings a little bit more grit to his game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, getting a first round pick and 3 prospects on top of that, and Lucius Ponomarev and Koivunen. I probably butchered all of those names. I know Lucius is definitely a good prospect out of those. And Ponomarev is decent too. I've heard about him. Not too much insight on both of those prospects, but I mean, 3 prospects, a first, a 5th, Ty Smith, who's a decent defenseman too, and then Michael Bunting. I mean, that's a huge return for just one player,
Yeah. No, I agree. What would we grade Pittsburgh and Carolina? I would give Pittsburgh, honestly, I wouldn't give them an A just because we don't know how those prospects are going to turn out. I'm going to give them a solid B plus though.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they kind of just got to get started on this rebuild process. Rebuild process. And, you just got to rip the Band-Aid off. And I feel like they got a pretty good return. Carolina, I would probably give them, I mean, again, they're pushing for the playoffs. I'm going to give them a B plus as well. They did gave up a lot, but I mean, if it pays off, it pays off, right? If you win a Stanley Cup, you can't really be too upset at the future. But if they don't, and they kind of fall apart in the next couple of years, then kind of screws them out. But what do you think?
For me, I think it's a solid A for the Pens. I think the Pens had a great trade. They got a huge return. I mean, like you said, they're kind of starting their rebuild process. To get those 3 draft picks, Carolina draft's good. I mean, that's a big upgrade for the Pens, and that's what they're looking for. On top of that, first round pick, Michael Bunting and Ty Smith, who are both pretty young. That's a huge return for just one player. For the Canes, I'd say a B, maybe a B minus. I just don't know how much of an impact he's going to make, at least this playoffs.
Yeah.
Going forward, though, I mean, he's a great player to have on your team. I'd say a B at least. But I think this is a good trade for both teams. But I do think the Pens are going to end up winning this trade just because, I mean, out of those three prospects, I think one of them is going to succeed. Especially if they still got Crosby. Slot him in with Crosby. I mean, shit, they could become something, because that's kind of what happened with Gensel. It's happened with Kunitz.
Yeah.
Lots of players in the past. If you play with Crosby, I mean, shit, dude. Maybe if you put me out there with Crosby, I might score a goal or two.
I'd probably score a goal if you slot me in with one of the best playmakers of all time. So we'll see how Carolina. I mean, I've seen some stuff about Gensel, like, oh, he's just got these points because he's Crosby's line mate, but there is some truth to that, I'm sure. But I guess we'll find out. You know, it's always kind of been a debate with Gensel, so we'll find out here soon.
I think his production is going to be less. I don't think it's going to go away completely, but I don't know if he's going to be the same player in terms of production as he was. But who knows? Yeah, we'll see. TBD.
Yeah, we will see. All right, next one and last one, Tyler Toffoli. He's been moved around a lot as of lately. You know, with the Kings and the Flames and the Devils. Now he's on the Jets. In that trade, the Devils got in return a 2024 third-round pick and a 2025 second-round pick. Foley, he's got 44 points this season, 26 goals. You know, I think for Winnipeg, it's a solid ad for them. You know, they have been not dominating, but they've been doing really well in the Central. So I feel like adding a player like him who has a Stanley Cup, it's good to add, you know, that kind of. It's weird to think that he's not I wouldn't call. Would you call him a veteran?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's
just weird to me to call him a veteran because
he's 31 and he's been in the year for a while. So
yeah,
and I mean, he is on in the last year of his contract. I think this is potentially the winner chicken dinner on all the trades in the deadline. I think the Jets scored big time, and they already have a very lethal team, lethal roster, goaltending up. That this is going to make a big difference to add a goal scorer. And I mean, Tyler Toffoli, he's been on so many teams. He is a player that you put him on any team. If it's the Canadiens, if it's the Flames, I mean, the fucking Flames, for Christ's sake, he was the best player on them. I mean, he's going to succeed. And he's already succeeded with the Jets. I don't know how many goals he's scored since he's been on the Jets, but he's going to slot in just perfectly. And not only that, I mean, they picked up Monahan recently too. So
they did,
these are some big pickups for the Jets. I think personally, I mean, the Jets are looking dangerous. I know we did not have high hopes for them at all at the beginning of the season.
We did not.
Throughout the season, but I think the Jets are contenders for the Cup right now. And they're looking nasty. I mean, I know we talked about their attendance issues, so hopefully that gets up in the playoffs. Hopefully people have enough money to go to tickets and whatnot. But man, I mean, what would you grade this for Winnipeg?
Winnipeg, I'd give them. I mean, they didn't really give up a whole lot. You know, I mean, third and second round, those are decent picks. I would give them an A minus.
Okay.
Just because of, you know, Toffoli's a solid ad, but he's not like he's a super big. No, I'm going to stick with an A minus. Just because giving up this year's second round pick is tough. But I think it's also beneficial enough for them that they're a solid team this year. They're making a push for the playoffs and the Stanley Cup as well. I think a lot of these teams are very, very competitive when it came down to the trade deadline that we've talked about today. Some teams, you know, didn't really try a whole lot. Boston was one that I was kind of like, interesting, but we can get into that after. What would you grade Winnipeg?
I'm going to go A+ for Winnipeg. I think this is, I mean, I think it's either going to be them or Vegas that probably win the trade deadline. I know Carolina had, you know, an excellent trade deadline. So it's probably going to be between those three teams. But I truly think that, adding Monahan and Toffoli, that brings, depth, scoring, everything to their team. So Tyler Toffoli, though, is a great addition to any team. He's going to work out anywhere. And for, the Jets, they're looking dangerous. So I'd give them an A+, but the Devils, I'd probably give them a B because, to be fair, I mean, they probably weren't going to re-sign him in terms of cap and just their younger squad on their team. So, I mean, it was a smart move to move him, especially his age. But just want to go back to the Flames and Devils trade this offseason. Everyone was shitting on the Flames. Why would you trade away your best goal scorer?
Yeah.
Why would you trade for Igor Sharangovich? Sharangovich has had an absolutely lights out season so far. I think he's had as many goals as Toffoli, which is a career high for him. So just want to say the Flames won that trade. So good job, Craig Conroy. I hope he also win the Hanifin and Tanev trades, but TBD.
Yeah. TBD. Yeah, we'll find out. Well, yeah, that pretty much wraps up our episode for today. I will say, like I said earlier, Boston, interesting. They didn't make any real moves. Who else? They were the big name I could think of.
I mean, the Rangers
Avalanche
didn't make too many.
Yeah, Rangers didn't really make a whole lot. Avalanche got rid of Byram for, I forget who. Is it a forward? I don't remember. But yeah, I think overall, who would you give the dub to in the trade deadline this year? I have my answer. I feel like I might know yours.
It's tough to say, but I'd probably say the Golden Knights. Add Hanifin and Hertl. I mean, those are two really good players, and that's. I mean, I think that they at least in terms of the trade deadline. I'm not talking about further success.
No.
They won that trade deadline. If they don't make the playoffs, though, that's going to be embarrassing, and that might begin the downfall of the Knights.
Yeah,
so
it very well could.
I know we would probably be happy with that and the rest of the league, but
yeah, hopefully, but we'll see.
Who won it for you?
I'd give it to the Knights. I think they definitely not swept house, but the return that they got for what they gave up is second to none than what any other team really did this year. So I'm going to give it to them, but again, we'll see if they make the playoffs. We'll see if it pays off. I think it's going to be tough to add. Hertl doesn't come back until, I want to say, another month or so. So he's going to have to get adjusted to this new team playing with them in the NHL come playoffs, which I think is really hard to do. But yeah, any other last words before we wrap up?
No, it would be awesome to see the Flames make the playoffs, but they're going to have a fucking streaks on streaks. They're basically going to have to win out, so I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, go Flames as always. Go Horsemen, Idaho Horsemen, the Arena Football League team here. And yeah, I mean, nothing too much. Thanks for watching and listening, everyone. And we are getting better and better and getting more followers, so love to see that.
Yeah, we want to see you guys. Let us know. Show yourself in the comments. Again, react to anything that we just said today. If you're interested in one of these hats, let me know because we haven't really heard much about merch. If you guys would be interested in, we'll start working on it here soon. We're just getting some things in order. But another thing, we have a giveaway to announce from Zooch and Wild, the college football podcast. If you are a Boise State fan or in the Boise area or just want to do this, we have or are going to be doing a March Madness bracket for all of Settle Down. It's going to be like sponsored by us. The winner of the tournament gets a free ticket for you and your friend to go to Boise State versus Oregon. Yes, you heard that right. Free ticket, no cost to you. The only thing you have to pay for is just getting there and what's it called? Like staying anywhere you're going to. If you want, I mean, if you feel like comfortable enough, you could join in with us. I know we're going to be going. Some of us, I'm not sure who all is going, but we'll probably get some Airbnb. So if you want to join in with us on that, go follow the Instagram. You'll find out more updates there if you're listening to this point. But seriously, it's a good deal. All you got to do, free entry too, by the way, to this ESPN bracket. So go hammer that. And let's see who wins, because it'd be fun to have one of you guys hang out with us. We're going to be, have a crazy weekend, vlog it, all that stuff. So yeah, but with that being said, wherever you're listening, however you're listening, if you're at this point, we love you. Thank you for being on, and we will catch you guys next week. Also, watch the live on Thursday. Comes out tomorrow. This is coming out Wednesday. So we'll be on tomorrow, 8 p.m. Central or Mountain Time.